by land, by sea, by air, proudly presents
The Edmund
Fitzgerald.
Of the Edmund Fitzgerald, a 729-foot ore carrier, which apparently broke apart and sunk last night on Lake Superior. The ship and its 29-man crew vanished in a storm with 80-mile-an-hour winds and wave heights up to 25 feet. All that has been found is an oil slick and some debris.
The British are coming, the British are coming, the British are coming by land, by sea, by air. You're looking at the largest body of fresh water in the world. We call it Lake Superior. Chippewa Indians call it Gijigumi. But it goes by another distinction. It's the lake that never gives up its dead.
An air and sea search is continuing for possible survivors of the Edmund Fitzgerald, a 729-foot ore carrier, which apparently broke apart and sunk last night on Lake Superior. The ship and its 29-man crew vanished in a storm with 80-mile-an-hour winds and wave heights up to 25 feet. All that has been found is an oil slick and some debris.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi. The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy. With the load of iron ore, 26,000 tons more than the Edmund Fitzgerald weighed empty. And big ship and true was upon the bitumen when the gales of November came early. The ship was the pride of the American side, coming back from some mill in Wisconsin. As the big freighters go, it was bigger than most, with a growing good captain well seasoned, concluding some terms with a couple of steel firms, with they left fully loaded for Cleveland. And later that night, when the ship's bell rang, it'd be the north wind they'd been feeling. The wind in the wild made a tattletale sound, and a wave broke over the river. And every man knew, as the captain did too, 'twas the witch of November come stealing. The dawn came late and the breakfast had to wait when the gales of November came slashing. When afternoon came, it was freezing rain, face of a hurricane west wind. When supper time came, the old cook came on deck saying, fellas, it's too rough to feed you. At 7 p.m. a main hatchway gave in. He said, fellas, it's been good to know you. The captain wired in, he had water coming in, and the big ship and crew was in peril. And later that night, when his lights went out of sight, in the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
He last had contact with him and made a talk to him. At about 10 minutes after 7, 1910, and he said he was going along fine and no problem. But it looks from the information that we have that it's fairly certain that the Fitzgerald went down.
Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn in minutes to hours? The searchers all say they'd have made Whitefish Bay. They put 15 more miles behind her. They might have split up, or they might have capsized. They may have broke even jungle water. And all that remains is the faces and the names of the wives and the sons and the daughters.
No, I didn't have any visually. I had him on the radar. He lost contact after that.
Lake Huron rolls imperial seas in the rooms of her ice-water mansion. Oh, Michigan steams like a young man's dreams, the islands and days of a sportsman. Farther below Lake Ontario takes in what Lake Erie can center. The iron boats go as the mariners all know, with the gales of November, remember. In a musty old hall in Detroit, they prayed in a maritime sailor's cathedral. The church bell chimed till it rang 29 times for each man on the Edmund Fitzgerald. The legend lives on from the Chippewa down of the big lake they called Kitchigumi. Superior, they said, never gives up redeem in the gales of November gone away.
Hello, this is Mickey Hansen, host of what will become the first of many transportation disasters that have occurred over the centuries. The song you just heard is The Record of the Edmund Fitzgerald by Canadian singer Gordon Lightfoot and is based on the true story of the topic of today's show, the Edmund Fitzgerald. First, you will see a PowerPoint presentation discussing her 17 years of existence. Then you'll hear a simulated conversation between the various ships and other players involved during the voyage between November 9th and November 10th, 1975. And then you'll hear the actual radio conversation between the Coast Guard and the Arthur M. Anderson. After that, you'll see some before and after pictures of the ship. Next, there will be a PowerPoint presentation on the 6 expeditions made to the wreck, Canadian government restrictions on future ones, theories on what might have caused the disaster, possible contributing factors, and changes made in the wake of the tragedy. After that, I will make my concluding thoughts and will include recommended books, documentaries, and other related material to get more in-depth information on the Edmund Fitzgerald. I hope you enjoy this program. Okay, first will be the Edmund Fitzgerald timeline. On February 1st, 1957, there is a contract signed between Great Lakes Engineering Works and Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company. On August 7th, 1957, keel of hull number 301 was laid in the River Rouge, Michigan. In 1958, an announcement is made naming the vessel after Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company's recently elected chairman of the board. On June 8, 1958, she is christened, making her the largest Great Lakes freighter. September 13th, 1958, she begins her sea trials. September 22nd, 1958, operation is handed over to Olga B. Norton. September 24th, 1958, she begins her maiden voyage under Captain Bert Lamport through the Soo locks and returns with the largest load ever carried through the locks. 1959, she is reassigned to Captain Larson. 66, she is reassigned again to Captain Peter Pulitzer. And then on September 6, 1969, she is damaged internally and externally when she hits the ground at the Soo locks. On April 30th, 1970, she collides with the SS Hogatha. September 4th, 1970, a second time, she is damaged when she hits the Soo lock walls. Between 1971 and 1972, she was converted from coal to diesel during the winter layup. In 1972, she's reassigned to her final captain, Ernest McSorley. 1973, she is damaged again from hitting the Soo lock wall. On January 7, 1974, she loses a bow anchor about 1 mile west of Belle Isle on the Detroit River. On June 17, 1974, once again, she is damaged by hitting one of the Soo lock walls.
At 8:30 a.m. on November 9, 1975, the Edmund Fitzgerald is loaded with taconite pellets at Burlington Northern Railroad dot number 1. The ship is scheduled to carry the cargo to Sug Island on the Detroit River. At 2:20 p.m., the Fitzgerald departs Lake Superior en route to Detroit with 26,116 tons of taconite pellets. At 2:39, the National Weather Service issues gale warnings for the area which the Fitzgerald is sailing in. Captain Cooper on the Anderson radios the Edmund Fitzgerald. At 4:15, the Fitzgerald spots the Arthur M. Anderson some 15 miles behind it. On November 10th at 1 a.m., from the last weather report the Edmund Fitzgerald will ever make, reports are to be 20 miles south of Isle Royale. Winds are at 52 knots with waves at 10 feet. At 3:15 p.m., Captain Jesse Cooper of the Anderson watches the Fitzgerald round the Caribou Island and comments it is much closer to the 6 Fathom Shoal than he would have wanted his own ship to be. At 3:20, Anderson reports winds coming from the northwest at 43 knots. At 3:30, there are radio transmissions between the Fitzgerald and the Anderson. Anderson, this is the Fitzgerald. I have sustained some topside damage. Have a fence rail laid down, 2 vents lost or damaged, and a list. I'm checking down. Will you stay by me until I get to Whitefish? Charlie on that, Fitzgerald. Do you have her pumps going? Yes, both of them. 4:10 p.m., the Fitzgerald rails the Arthur M. Anderson, requesting radar assistance for the remainder of the voyage. Anderson, this is the Fitzgerald. I have lost most radars. Can you provide me with radar plots until we reach Whitefish Bay? Charlie on that, Fitzgerald. We'll keep you advised of your position. About 4:39, the Fitzgerald can't pick up the Whitefish Point radio beacon. The Fitzgerald rails the Coast Guard at Grand Mara on Channel 16, the emergency channel. Between 4:30 p.m. and 5 p.m., the Fitzgerald calls for any vessel in the Whitefish Point area regarding the information about the beacon and the light at Whitefish Point. They receive an answer by the saltwater aviators that the beacon and the lights are not operating. These are the radio transmissions between the aviators and the Fitzgerald, received between 5:30 and 6 p.m. Fitzgerald, this is the aviators. I have the Whitefish light now, but still am receiving no beacon. Over. I'm very glad to hear it. The wind is howling down here. What are the conditions where you are? Ben. Don't let nobody on the deck. What's that, Fitzgerald? Unclear, over. I have a bad list, lost both radars, and taking heavy seas over the deck. One of the worst seas I have ever seen. I thought you had 2 radars. They're both gone. Sometime around 7 p.m., the Anderson is struck by 2 huge waves that put water on the ship 30 feet above the waterline. The waves hit with enough force to push the starboard side lifeboat down, damaging the bottom. At 7:10 p.m., there is more road transmission between the Anderson and the Fitzgerald. The Fitzgerald is being followed by the Anderson. They are about 10 miles behind it. Fitzgerald, this is the Anderson. Have you checked down? Yes, we have. Fitzgerald, we're about 10 miles behind you and gaining about 1.5 miles per hour. Fitzgerald, there's a target 19 miles ahead of us, so the target would be 9 miles on ahead of you. Well, am I going to clear? Yes, he is going to pass to the west of you. Well, fine. By the way, Fitzgerald, how are you making out with your problem? We are holding our own. Okay, fine. I'll talk to you later. These are the last words ever heard from the Edmund Fitzgerald. It is estimated that the Fitzgerald sank between 7:20 and 7:30 p.m. At 7:15 p.m., the Fitzgerald earns a squall while still in Lake Superior. The squall obscures the vessel from radar observation by the Anderson. This is normal when in a squall. At 7:25, the Edmund Fitzgerald disappears from the Anderson's radar, prompting a call to the Coast Guard to inform them of the situation. At 7:55, the Anderson calls again and informs the Coast Guard that they have lost the Fitzgerald both visually and on radar. At 9 p.m., the Coast Guard, with no available search ships, rails the Arthur and Anderson, requesting assistance. Anderson, this is Group Sioux. What is your present position? We're down here about 2 miles off Parisian Island right now. The wind is northwest 40 to 45 miles here in the bay. Is it calming, do you think? In the bay it is, but I heard a couple salties talking up there, and they wish they had gone out. After much more conversation and a quest by the Coast Guard to return to the search for the ship, reluctant to go out, thus Arthur and Anderson agrees to give it a try, but claims that it's all we can do. At 10:53 p.m., the first aircraft arrives on the scene from Traverse City, Michigan. Around 2 p.m., William Clay Ford arrives at the scene of the wreck. The Hilda Moran tries to join the search, but is unable to do so.
The last time that you talked to him, at what time that was, over? I have to check with the mate on it, but it must have been right around 7:15, our time, Eastern Standard Time. This is just Roger. So also, did you come about or alter your course in any way to look for him, over? Negative. I got seas going right across my deck here now. I did not right up in his vicinity, but no, I didn't. So this is Goose Sioux. Roger. Thanks for that information, sir, and I'll get back to you if we come up with anything, over. Yeah, okay. W4805. Listen, Arthur Anderson, Group Sioux, 16, 22. 22. Anderson, this is Group Sioux. Roger, sir. Anderson, this is Group Sioux. Roger, sir. Have the 3 vessels that were up past you yet, over? That is Charlie. We were meeting the one, and I was asking him if he could pick up anything in the radar, and he couldn't. And I don't know, that was a name for. He was the second one out. This is Group Sioux. so bad, but we thought we had the target. But I don't know. Now I wonder.
This is Group 2, Roger. Thanks very much, sir.
34005. Group 2, here's the mate. He was up here with the whole thing was going on. Maybe you could get some better information from him. I might have been wrong on some of what I was giving you.
Lansing, Group 2, wait, out. Fitzgerald, this is Group 2, Roger, sir. Right now, we have the information we need. I can go back over it with the mate just to make sure, though. The questions we had were, what time was the last time that you had any comms or that you noticed you had the Fitzgerald in front of you, over?
1900. 1900, he was approximately 15 miles from the high hump at Crisp Point. That's when I was talking to him. He was 15 miles from the land.
So, I understand you had him visually and on the radar, and you lost him in both respects.
No, I didn't have him visually. I had him on the radar. He was exactly 10 miles ahead of us. I asked him at the time how everything was going. Just wait one. I asked him how he was making out with his problem. He said he lost those vents and he had a lift, and he said he was holding his own. The last time I talked with him, he said he was holding his own, and that's the last time I lost contact after that.
This is Group 2, Roger. Group 2, Roger, sir. That was approximately 1900, correct?
All right. We held him on the radar up to, well, we started getting a lot of sea return, probably around between 8 and 9 miles, and when he got in the sea return, we turned the other radar on, and we really wasn't sure of any definite target after that.
This is Group 2, Roger that, and also, I understand there were 3 upbounders that were to keep an eye out for this, for the Fitzgerald, and they passed with negative contact, is that correct?
Roger on that. We tried to call him about 6 or 8 times on emergency FM and emergency FM and every day, and we cannot reach.
This is Group 2, Roger, sir, and can you give me an idea of what the distance between the ships that were passing each other, between the upbounders and downbounders was, over?
Well, he was, say, approximately 2 miles to the east of the course that we came down on off of Whitefish Point, so the upbounders that we met, they should have been just about in the reverse course line of what he was coming, or maybe a mile to the west of that.
This is Group 2, Roger, sir. Thank you for that information. One other thing, just for confirmation, they saw no lights, and they picked him up. They did not pick him up on radar, but at the same time, you were tracking the 3 upbounders on radar. Is that correct, Owen?
All right, we were picking up 3 upbounders up on radar, of course, outside of the sea return ring, down around Whitefish Point, and the lookout up here was keeping a lookout, because at the time I said he was 10 miles, that we should see his lights, and the lookout was keeping a lookout. We never seen any lights or flares or anything.
Anderson, this is Group 2. Roger, thank you for that information, and we'll get back to you if we need any further, over.
Hey, Roger. W4805, the Anderson.
Group 2, Roger, sir, can you give me the names of the 3 upbound vessels that were supposed to look for the Fitzgerald, over?
I didn't get that. I didn't copy that.
Anderson, this is Group 2. Can you help me out, sir, with the names of the 3 upbound vessels that were to pass the Fitzgerald? We know one of them was the Manfrey. Do you have the names of the other 2, over?
Control. Control.
Control.
Yeah, you were coming in broken up. I couldn't read anything. Anderson.
Anderson, this is Control. Roger, we'd like to know the names of the 3 vessels that were supposed to pass upbound. We know one was the Manfrey. Were the other 2 saltwater vessels also?
Buzz.
Anderson, Control. Question, say again?
The other one was a Benfree, and one was a Nanfree. And I just talked to the Nanfree again. He's right up in that area. I can still pick him up on the radar.
Roger, and the other was the Benfree. And also, there should have been a 3rd vessel. Was that the 8 of 4s, over?
I think I'd heard him talking before, yes.
This is 2 Control, Roger. Stand by. Conditions, over?
Just a minute. The wind is about west-northwest 4 40 to 45 here. See, we're in the bay here now. The seas are not quite as bad, but out beyond the point there, we were taking water 6 feet high right across our deck.
Roger, sir. When you talk about 6 feet high across your deck, how much freeboard is that, Owen?
That's, we've got about 10 feet. I estimated the waves for some of them, some of the big ones between 20 and 25 feet.
Roger, sir. Visibility?
Well, there was occasional snow squalls, but as a rule, good.
Roger, can you give me an estimate in distance? 10 miles?
Yes, all of that at times. I mean, it did diminish in squalls occasionally, but all of 10 miles. We're picking up the saltwater vessels coming down toward, well, we saw whitefish at about 20 miles.
Are there any other vessels transiting either downbound or upbound in that area?
Those 3 saltwater vessels are in the area. One of them is up past the area now, but when we last had contact with him, they made us talk to him at about 10 minutes after 7, 1910, and he said he was going along fine and no problems. Except he didn't have a radar, and that's when the mate gave him his position, the 15 miles north of the Chris Point at 144 degrees. What was it? Was it 100? He said he told him the last time he was just 15 miles from that big high landing back of Chris Point. North of it.
I'd just say thank you very much for that information. If we need anything else, we'll be contacting you. I'm negative for here. Go up.
Roger, W4005. Yes, this is the Anderson. Say, I was just one more thing I was happened to think about. That Fitzgerald is a weather ship, the same as we are. You might be able to check through Lorraine and see if through your stations up there on Grand Marais, so if he put in a position, a weather report.
Roger, sir. We've been in contact with Station Grand Marais. They report that they've heard nothing to the Edmund Fitzgerald. Over.
No, I was just wondering, he is a weather ship. He could have put it in Lorraine or any place. I was just wondering whether you could check through on that.
The answer, this is the crew control. Roger, we'll follow up on that. What's your present position on the weather conditions, over?
We're down here about 2 miles off of Parisian Island right now. We were just getting ready to call you and give us our time at Parisian, but the wind is west-northwest about 40-45 here in the bay. But outside there, I took one seal. I got 10.5 feet of freeboard, and I got the extra deck back there, and I took one up around the lifeboat, so there was some very heavy seas occasionally.
This is crew control. Is it coming down at all, do you think?
In the bay here it is, but the way the fellows, I heard a couple of fellows I saw talking up there, a couple of them wish they hadn't gone out.
Crew control, Roger. Did you pass anybody else that was upbound that's just recently? Or?
Negative. The last 3 we met were those 3 saltwater vessels, the Nan 3, the Ben 3, and I can't remember the name of the other one.
This is crew control, Roger. We have it. Do you think there's any possibility that you could come about and go back there and do any searching? Over.
Oh, God, I don't know. That sea out there is tremendously large. If you want me to, I can, but I'm not going to be making any time. I'll be lucky to make 2 or 3 miles an hour going back out that way.
This is crew control, Roger. Well, you have to make the decision as to whether you would be happy or not. But you're probably one of the only vessels right now that can get to the scene. We're going to try to contact those saltwater vessels and see if they can't possibly come about and come back also. But I understand you are alerted, is that correct?
The radar here 10 minutes ago, and they were right up to that area.
This is crew control, Roger. We will contact them and see if we can't get them to search in the area also. We're trying to get a Coast Guard aircraft launch to come up to the area, but I would say things look pretty bad. Like she may have split apart at the seams like the Morale did a few
just what I'm wondering, because the mate come up here, we laid it off, and the last known position that we had on them was 14 miles west of Copper Mine Point. And now, we had been told, we just talked to him, about 10 after 7, and he said everything was fine, and of course, when the sea returned, never thought anything about it. But we saw there should have been ring buoys with lights on them flashing, and the visibility was good.
This is Crew Control, Roger. You are definitely sure that he was ahead of you, is that correct?
That is Charlie, yes, and the wind was west-northwest out there, steady 55, gusting to 70.
Crew Control, Roger. Well, again, do you think you could come about and go back and take a look in the area? Over.
I'll go back and take a look, but God, I'm afraid that I'm going to take a hell of a beating out there on it. And if they could get a search, if they could get a chopper over there, they'd be blowing over toward Copper Mine Point, and I don't know how far in there I could get. Let me take a look at the chart again.
Roger, standing by 22.
A little ways, but there's also 4 boats under Whitefish. I'm cleared out here to Freezing Island, but I'll turn around and give it a whirl, but God, I don't know. I'll give it a try. Jeff, there's 4 vessels under Whitefish, too. You better pack those anchors again. Do you read that, Crew Control?
This is Crew Control, Roger. This is the captain of the port speaking. That would be good if you could turn around and head out that way, and we're going to try to get as many other vessels that can possibly get underway and proceed to that area. Over.
Yeah, do you realize what the conditions are out there? Hello there, Crew Control. Do you realize what the conditions are out there, don't you?
This Crew Control, affirmative. From what your reports are, I can appreciate the conditions. Again, though, I have to leave that decision up to you as to whether you'll be hazarding your vessel or not. If you think you can safely go back into the area, I would request that you do so, but I have to leave that decision up to you. Over.
Well, I'll go out and take a look, but I know when I was about 15 miles above Whitefish, we took a sea right over the top of the hatch crane up here, and that's 8 feet up in the water, too, so I don't know whether I can do it or not. I'll give it a try, but that's all I can do.
Crew Control, Roger. Keep me posted on your progress, and we'll be back in touch with you. Over.
Okay, good evening, 45.
Missing Edmund Fitzgerald in your area. Request you search an area 15 miles due west, Copper Mines Point, Ontario, and 15 miles north of Crisp Point. Over. Sir, that was the last known position of the Edmund Fitzgerald at approximately 7:10 local time tonight. This Control, request to know if you will be able to come to a dead slow and still maintain headway, sir.
Crew Control, the captain of the port speaking. We have no other vessels in that vicinity right now. I guess I should say there are several other saltwater vessels there that we're also trying to have assist in the search. But it looks from the information that we have that it's fairly certain that the Fitzgerald went down. And we're talking now about a matter of life and death and looking for survivors that might be in life rafts or in the water. And we can only ask the masters to do the best without hazarding their vessel. If you think it would be unsafe and would hazard your vessel, then you have to do whatever best you can. But if you could come about and head into the sea and try to stay in that area, and maybe we could pick up some survivors. If not at night, then maybe at first light. Over. Roger, we would appreciate that. Anything that you can do. If the captain feels it would unduly hazard his vessel to come about, then he should not do so. Over. Control, go ahead. Humphrey, this is Crew Control. Did you overhear what I was saying to Captain O'Brien, and how did you feel about coming about and searching in that area? Over. Crew Control, Roger, understand. Request you to do the best you can and see if you could sight any sign of any lights in the water, or any debris, or any life rafts, or anything that might indicate survivors from the vessel. Over. Control, Roger.
That's bad. Well, let's hope he just got radio problems. Yeah, I don't. You could have. We hope you lost him in the sea return. That's all. Yeah. No. Well, how far away from him were you, Bernie, when you lost sight of him or lost contact with him? You never did, eh? Yeah. Well, take it easy, Bernie. What station did you call me through? Oh, I see, yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. Find out there, will you, Bernie? Okay, we'll do it. Did you say he snapped some bits off? Chance he got down in there ahead of you. Well, what was the last position that the Fitzgerald had of his own, that he got on his own? Well, that's what I say. What was his last position that he had on his own? Could you possibly have had the wrong ship or a false target or anything? Well, had the Fitzgerald seen anything himself to check on his position? No possibility then that he was someplace else, that you had the wrong ship, or we're talking to the wrong ship or anything. Okay, that answers that, I guess. Well, do you run approximately the same speed? Yeah, well. Have any other ships around there trying to contact them? Oh, yeah. Well, let's hope it's just some radio problem. Yeah. Well, okay then. I say let's hope it's just radio problem. Yeah. Well, okay, Bernie, take it easy. I'll take care, Tom. Yeah, all right. What happened? Found information concerning Edmund Fitzgerald. Yes, we have. Roger, sir. Would there be any way possible that you would be able to get underway and search for survivors? I'll have to notify the captain and call you back. All right, go be standing by. Point fast, so I'm heading up as close as I dare to Pancake Shoal, and then I'll come back up on that right ahead, put my stem right into the wind. I understand that you have come about and started the search, is that correct? Negative, not yet. I'm under check. I'm not up to the position to start yet. All right, sir. Question, keep us advised? Yeah, it's pretty good sight you're running out here. I just can't push her in it. Okay, Roger. You think the wind is abating a little bit, over? It seems to be moderating a little bit right now, and at least I hope so. That low is moving pretty fast, and we're on the back side of it. I have high hopes that it'll ease up, but there is a huge sea out here. That's the control, Roger. We talked to the Weather Bureau also, and they said it had reached its peak and was coming down a little bit, and they expected that by morning it should be down somewhere around 15 to 20 sometime in the morning. Yeah, well, I'll tell you, if you're going to start your search, the way the wind and the sea has been out there, the searches, I think it should be conducted from the land side out first. Mr. Control, Roger, I was saying over there by Pancake Shoal is a pretty good spot. Yeah, just like when we were in with a search for those other boys that were up off here before, I was involved with that, and they wound up at Pancake Shoal. Mr. Control, Roger, you're heading on a north-westerly course now? I'm heading almost north-northwest, so I can get up close to Pancake Shoal and go out on a heading that's with my stem right into the eye of the sea. Mr. Control, Roger, and you're riding the speed pretty good now? Well, I'm under check. I haven't got the full force of them yet, but they're still big. I'm still getting a little bit of a lead from whitefish yet, but I've got it under check here right now.
Roger. So what about what speed would that be normally? Well, it would normally be around 9-10 miles an hour, but we'll be making a lot less than that. Roger. Appreciate your help, and we're trying to get a couple other vessels up there from White Six Point also. Yeah, well, I don't know. It seems funny. I mean, we've been shadowing them all the time, and then they started looking for them, they couldn't find them. That's pretty cool, Roger, and no peace out of them. That's the thing that really strikes me is that you didn't even have time to give a distress call. You have no contact on radar in that vicinity at the present time, is that correct? Oh yeah, I can see the two saltwater vessels up there now. They're 4, 8, 12, 16. One is about 17 miles and one is 20. They're not making any time at all. They're making a mile or two an hour. They're heading up into that big sea. But the thing about it was, we come up there, we called the Fitzgerald to check on him and see how he was doing. And the last contact we had with him, he said, well, he was going along fine and holding his own and no problem. And then he kind of relaxed a little bit, you know, and he was in the sea return. And then when we couldn't see his lights, we figured we should be checking him a little bit because he checked down and then he just wasn't there. Did you say that he had a couple of his guts come off and was taking some water? Yeah, that's the reason he asked. So, Roger, we're getting an aircraft control in the area now. We'll be back with you. Wait, let us know the progress. Yeah, well,
236 at the Pancake Shoal. Sir, and the last known position of the vessel was 15 miles due north of Cliff Point, over. 7236, Roger. All right, Roger. But if there's any way possible for you to talk to survivors, would be greatly appreciated without risking any lives or danger aboard the vessel.
That's what I understand. As I say, I'm up in Gooley Bay here, and for me to get going and get out of here, and with the gyro, the particular thing, as I came out of the SNU there this afternoon in that 55-mile-an-hour wind there, and we got going around and tried to make the ranges. Fortunately, we were able to get the ranges, and I could work there magnetically, but as I say, I'd get out there without a gyro and getting absolute course lines, and that I'd be in jeopardy with my crew.
Master, we request then that any time that you do decide to get underway, you do keep a sharp eye for possibly any debris or any survivors.
Absolutely. We're monitoring all the radio conversations there, and it's one of those things that occurred. I would be more than willing to go out there, but with the situation with the gyro that I have here, I have problems. So consequently, I don't want to jeopardize the vessel of my crew.
Master, received. Thank you much. So long.
Thank you, Motor. West of the Atlantic, South clear.
Get underway. The common working frequency would be channel 12 on that, over. Zoo Control 7236, Roger, and are they commercial vessels, over? 7236, Zoo Control, the Anderson, motor vessel Anderson is a vessel that's presently coming around getting underway. The Hillamar Jane is also getting underway, also a commercial vessel, over. 236, what was that last vessel? Hillamar Jane, over. Radio, what's that here?
The vessel you're searching for is the Edmund Fitzgerald. Stand by one, let me get the Arthur Anderson on his frequency. He is the vessel that reported seeing the Fitzgerald disappear from his radar screen, and he was the last one that was in radar contact with him, and I also believe he will be the closest vessel to the scene as he gets back on scene there. But stand by one, and we will get him on this frequency. Over.
Roger.
Yes, Anderson on 12. The Arthur Anderson, this is Zoo Control. I have aircraft 7236, aircraft 7236 on scene. Do you see him, over? Negative. Where is his exact position? Does he have channel 16?
Arthur Anderson, Coast Guard, 7236, channel 12.
Yes, this is
you see us coming out here? I don't spot you at all.
I've got 5 vessels out here.
Well, I'm the one that's heading out. I'm almost out to Whitefish Point. Can you see the point there?
Roger, can you flash your lights,
I'll put my searchlight in the sky.
Sounds good.
Do you see it?
Negative, we're looking at this time.
You pick me up yet?
Negative.
Oh, Coast Guard aircraft.
Alright, Anderson, 7236, negative. We have 2 ships close aboard Whitefish Point there. And presently 3.
They're in fact they're north and west of Copper Mine Point. Whereabouts is your position at the present time?
It appears we're beam on Whitefish Point.
You should see us there. We'd be the only ship down here that's off of the point proper.
Roger.
7236, this is Stu Control. There are a number, either 3 or 4 vessels that are anchored right inside Whitefish Point in the lee there. But the Anderson is further out along the track line, heading towards Pancake Shoal. It's our recommendation that you search a line from Pancake Shoal to a point 15 miles north of Crisp Point. That was the last reported position of the Fitzgerald was 15 miles north, due north of Crisp Point, and with the wind blowing from the northwest, if there were any survivors, we would estimate that they should have drifted towards Pancake Shoal. Over.
Control 7236, repeat the last. I didn't get the drift on the survivors, over.
This is to Control. With the wind blowing from the northwest at 40 to 50 knots, we would estimate that the survivors should have drifted towards Pancake Shoal from a point 15 miles due north of Crisp Point. Over.
7236, roger.
Is that all to Control? This is the Anderson.
Anderson to Control. Request you stand by on this frequency and maintain comms with us and the aircraft. We will use this as the common search frequency. Over.
Roger. Hello, Coast Guard aircraft. Yes, I see you there now. We'll put our searchlight right on you.
Negative. I've got you in sight.
Okay, fine. That Pancake Shoal area, do you have a little map there where it is?
Taking your traffic guard.
I said, do you have an area map there that shows Pancake Shoal?
Affirmative.
Well, that wind was west-northwest and very steady from about the west-northwest all afternoon. That's out blue wire. Are you going to drop any further or anything out about this?
We have one forward. We're not planning on it at this time. But where was the ship? My ship in relation to the position of your position at this time, over.
Where would it be?
Yeah, where would I stand when you lost radar?
We lost contact. Well, the last known contact we had was 14 miles west of Copper Mine Point, but we don't know whether we had them later than that or not because of the tremendous heat to return on our radar.
Deal for you right now.
Okay, the V for you, fine.
We've got crossing Fitzgerald was 15 miles due north of Crisp Point. That would put them on the outbound track. Were you outbound north of the downbound track? Over.
Oh, Roger, we've been up to the north and we came down off of Ottawa, just off of the west end of Mississippi. We're both steering around 140 degrees true for Whitefish Point from Mississippi.
That's to Control, Roger. So you were very close then to the upbound track at that position, right?
Well, no, we were even east of the upbound track. We were actually east of that. If you take it lay off 14 miles west of Copper Mine Point, we would have been up there for weather and coming back down.
Okay, now we will be discussing what happened after the Edmund Fitzgerald loss. First, the 6 expeditions to the wreck. The first one was the Coast Guard investigation conducted between May 20th and May 28th, 1976.
They were able to identify the wreck through hull identification and name on the ship. There were hundreds of photos taken. It issues an official report after the data analysis, and also issues a highly controversial theory of faulty hatch covers. This is the unmanned submersible that was used to study the wreck. It was called the Curve 3, capable of operations at 10,000 feet, metal frame 6.5 feet by 6.5 feet by 15 feet, approximate weight was 27 tons. Slightly buoyant water, it was able to be deployed and operated from a surface support ship, full buoying and self-inspection capability, and other support systems include sonar, active and passive, an altimeter, depthometer, and compass. Tool assembly included a manipulator claw, and other devices could be mounted for other tasks. Now I'm going to be showing you 6 drawings from the official Coast Guard report. This first graph shows the track line of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Okay, now you're seeing a diagram of the ship. Okay, next is a sketch of the relative positions of the bow and stern section. Okay, now you're looking at a sketch of the bow section from the starboard side. Now you're seeing a sketch of the bow section from ahead. Another sketch of the bow section from astern. Okay, now we're seeing a sketch of the stern from ahead. And now we're getting to the second expedition, Calypso, which was conducted September 24th, 1980. It was led by Jean-Michel Cousteau and explored in a submersible manned by Albert Falco and Colin Moner in a single dive. Wreck was filmed as part of the Cousteau documentary, The St. Lawrence, Stairway to the Sea. Few glimpses were made and little was learned. Conclusion was made that the Fitzgerald broke in two at the surface and did not sink very quickly. This, however, cannot be verified. And this is Jean-Michel Cousteau, son of the famous undersea explorer Jacques Cousteau. This is the Calypso, the ship used, and this is the Suku, the manned sub that the two divers used to explore the wreck. Okay, the third expedition involved an ROV in late August 1989. It was under the organization of the Michigan Sea Grant. The primary objective was to record 3D videotape to be used in a museum and education programs and documentary. It was a 3-day survey dive, explored by a highly technological, remotely operated vehicle, ROV, and included many experts. NOAA, that is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also by the National Geographic Society, Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. And they made some fine discoveries. There was still intact glass on the ship. And also, one of the pilot doors was open. They claimed some bow damage was far too extensive to be from the storm. And this is the ROV that was used. It's self-propelled, tethered, and free swimming. Next was Great Lakes 94. Conducted July 1994. Part of a 6-week survey expedition to survey the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence Seaway. 6 publicly funded dives to the Fitzgerald were made over a 3-day period. It was supervised by Dr. Joseph McGinnis. The Great Lakes Historical Society paid $10,000 for each dive.
Tom Farquhar's, the Society's executive director, was on the team. Mr. Farquhar made observations and claimed the Fitzgerald could not have broken into the surface, and discovered more extensive damage than previously reported. Taconite pellets were scoured all over the wreck in Lake 4. This is Dr. Joseph McInnes, Canadian explorer and leader of the expedition. This was the support ship used, the Edward A. Link of the Harbor Branch Oceanographic Institution. And here's Tom Farquhar, Executive Director of the Great Lakes Shipwrecks Historical Society. The fifth expedition, the DeQuest Limited, July 25th through July 27th, 1994. It was led by businessman Fred Shannon. Mr. Shannon had previously studied NOAA navigation charts with international boundary that had changed 6 times before publication in 1976. Determined at least 1/3 of the 2 acres of the immediate wreckage is in U.S. waters due to an error in U.S.-Canadian boundary unofficial charts. They made 7 privately funded dives. They made 42 hours of underwater footage. And they also set the record for the longest dive to the Fitzgerald at 211 minutes. This expedition made some of the closest and clearest footage obtained. Also, the expedition gained notoriety by disclosure of a body found on the wreckage. On the final dive, a memorial plaque was left near the pilot house. Mr. Shannon's group concluded massive and advancing structural failure caused the Fitzgerald to break apart on the surface and sink. And this is businessman Fred Shannon. And this is the sub that he used to dive on the wreck, the Delta. And here's the body that was found. The crewman was wearing a life jacket, lying alongside the ship's bow. Life jacket had deteriorated canvas and 6 clearly visible rectangular cord blocks. The final expedition involved recovering the ship's bell between June 30th and July 4th, 1995. Upon the request of many Edmund Fitzgerald families, the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society retrieved the ship's bell. The Sioux tribe of Chippewa Indians backed the expedition by co-signing a $250,000 loan. Co-leaders were Emery Christoph, Tom Farquhar, and Joseph McInnes. The newt suit was used to retrieve the bell, replace it with a replica, and put a beer can in the pilot house. The bell was restored upon its recovery. The divers set multiple records while using trimix gas to dive the wreck. They're the only people known to have touched it. It was the deepest scuba dive on the Great Lakes, the deepest shipwreck dive, and they're the only divers known to have reached the wreck without the aid from a submersible. It took 6 minutes to reach the wreck, 6 minutes to survey it, and 3 hours to resurface to avoid the bends. It is currently displayed in the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum in Whitefish Point, Michigan. This is one of 2 ships involved, the HMCS Cormorant, and another ship, the Anglian Lady. And here's the newt suit, which was used by both divers. And you can see the person. You can clearly see here the bell being recovered from the wreck. Cheryl Rosman had lost her father. Watchman Ransom Ray Cundy to the tragedy. She asked if he could have a beer. A can was placed in the pilot house is shown here. Mrs. Rusman chuckled when she heard of it.
Let's see a comparison of the bells. The bell that was recovered. The Edmund Fitzgerald bell just after recovery. And the one on the right shows what the bell looks like now at the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum. This is the replica to replace the original bell. And that same replica close up showing the names of all the crewmen that had lost their lives in this tragedy. This is Emma Kristoff, one of the co-leaders. Okay, now we'll be discussing Canadian restrictions on future dives. In 2002, the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society conducted a sonar dive on the wreck. On March 2005, they were accused of conducting unauthorized dive, which its director admits to, but says the survey didn't need a license at the time. In April 2005, there was an amendment to the Ontario Heritage Act that allows Ontario government to impose a license requirement of any kind within a certain radius around protected sites with a fine of $1 million in Canadian currency. January 27, 2006, the Ontario government extended any activity to the wreck within a 500-meter radius. In 2009, and there was an additional amendment that requires a license for any type of survey device. Okay, now we're going to get into the theories on the cause of the sinking. The first theory involves waves and weather. In 2005, there was a computer simulation ran covering November 9th through the 11th on 1975. It was done by NOAA and the National Weather Service. It included weather and wave conditions. Analysis showed two separate areas of high wind in Lake Superior. One had speeds in excess of 49 miles per hour, another in excess of 46 miles per hour. In the area where the Fitzgerald was lost had the highest winds. Average wave heights increased to 19 feet by 7 p.m. November 10th, and winds exceeded 50 miles per hour over the area. The Fitzgerald sank at high wind areas east edge, where distant wind blows over, known as a long fetch, and produce waves averaging over 23 feet by 7 p.m. and 25 feet at 8 p.m. 1 in 100 waves reached 36 feet, and 1 in 1,000 reached 46 feet. Waves likely caused heavy rolling by the Fitzgerald. When the loss occurred, the Anderson reported northwest winds of 57 miles per hour, matching simulated analysis result of 54 miles per hour. The maximum sustained winds reached about 7 miles per hour with gusts of 86 miles per hour at the time and location of loss.
And this is an example of a long fetch. Our next theory involves a rogue wave. In the Fitzgerald's vicinity was a group of 3 rogue waves, 3 sisters, were reported. Phenomena is said to occur on Lake Superior as a result of 3 rogue waves a third larger than normal. The first wave hits the ship's deck.
The second wave strikes before water from the first drains away. The third wave adds to accumulating backwashes and suddenly overload the deck with tons of water. Captain Cooper reported that his ship was hit by 2 30 to 35 feet seas at 6:30 p.m. The first buried aft cabins and pushed a lifeboat onto its saddle, damaging it.
The second came over the bridge deck. Cooper said that these two weights, possibly accompanied by a third, continued to the Fitzgerald's direction and would have struck when she sank. The theory assumes three sisters compounded the Fitzgerald's list in slower speed and heavy seas that allow water to remain on deck longer than usual. Next theory involves cargo hold flooding. July 26, 1977, the U.S. Coast Guard Marine casualty report suggests accident was caused by ineffective hatch closures. Devices failed to prevent the waves from entering the cargo hold. Gradual flooding throughout the final day resulted in a fatal loss of buoyancy and stability, resulting in the loss without warning. However, video footage of the wreck showed most hatch clamps in perfect condition. The U.S. Coast Guard Marine Board concluded that the few damaged clamps were the only one fastened. From the beginning, some people believed the findings to be tainted due to serious questions regarding their preparedness, licensing, and rule changes. It was common practice for freighters to always embark without all cargo clamps locked in place on hatch covers. On May 4th, 1978, the National Transportation Safety Board came to their own conclusion. Observations were made on the Curve 3 survey. The number one hatch, the one closest to the bow, the hatch cover was completely within the hatch, showed indications of buckling from internal loading, and combing sections fractured and buckled. The second hatch was missing its cover, combing was fractured and buckled. The third hatch was covered in mud, and a corner of the cover was seen in place. The fourth hatch was covered in mud. The fifth hatch was missing a cover, had 16 consecutive hatch cover clamps, of which 1/8 were distorted or broken, and the others were undamaged and in the open position. The sixth hatch was open and hatch cover was standing on end vertically. The number 7 hatch was missing a hatch cover, combings fractured or severely distorted and ripped up. The 8th hatch was missing a cover. The combings were fractured and severely distorted, and the bow section abruptly ends just after the hatch. The National Transportation Safety Board conducted computer studies, test analysis, determined forces necessary to collapse hatch covers. The conclusion was made that the Fitzgerald sank suddenly from massive cargo hold flooding due to the collapse of at least one hatch cover under the weight of giant boarding seas instead of gradually from ineffective hatch closures. This theory was shoaling. The Lake Carriers Association believed that the loss was from shoaling or grounding in the 6 Fathom Shoal northwest of Caribou Island when the vessel unknowingly raked a reef when the Whitefish Point Lighthouse was unavailable as a navigation aid. In 1976, the Canadian Hydrographic disclosed unknown shoal which ran 1 mile east of the 6 Fathom Shoal. Theory concludes Fitzgerald's down fence rail could only occur if the ship had hogged during shoaling, pulling the railing tight until cables dislodged and tore under the strain. And this drawing gives you an example of what is meant by a ship hogging. You'll notice how the vessels being pushed down on either end while being pushed up in the center. This is what is meant by hogging. However, divers searched the Six Fathoms shoal after the wreck occurrence and found no evidence of recent collision or grounding anywhere. During the DeQuest expedition, photography of the overturned stern showed no evidence of the bottom of the stern, the propeller, or the rotor of the ship that would indicate that the ship struck a shoal. Paul Hunault, retired professor of mechanical engineering from the Michigan Technological University, promotes a theory that began as a student class project. Under his hypothesis, the Fitzgerald grounded at 9:30 on November 10th on Superior Shoal. The shoal, charted in 1929, is an underwater mountain in the middle of Lake Superior, about 50 miles north of Caribou Harbor. This mountain has sharp peaks rising above the lake's surface. Water has depths ranging from 22 to 400 feet. It is a menace to navigation. The discovery resulted in recommended ship route changes. Standing wave occurred during low pressure system over Lake Superior on November 10, 1975, causing lake to rise 3 feet over the Sioux Lock Gates, flooding Portage Avenue in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, with 1 foot of water. The theory holds that this sea contributed to the ship shoaling 200 feet of hull on this shoal, which caused the hull to be punctured mid-body. Wave action continued hull damage until the middle third dropped out, leaving the ship held together by the center deck. Okay, now you'll see an illustration of a site as a standing wave. On the top of the drawing, you'll see a single node sike with the left boat higher than the right boat. And the picture below it is a half hour later, roles reversed. The boat on the right is higher than the boat on the left. Now you see a photograph of a sike or standing wave. The stern, acting like an anchor, caused the Fitzgerald to come to a full stop, which in turn caused everything to go forward. Ship broke apart on surface in seconds. Compressed air blew a hole in the starboard bow, which sank 18 degrees off course. The rear kept going forward with the engine still running, rolled over to port, and landed on the bottom. Structural failure is the next theory. The already weakened structure in the Fitzgerald's load line modification allowed heavier loading and traveling low in the water, made possible large waves to cause hull stress based on huge storm, regular waves, and not necessarily rogue waves. Both the U.S. Coast Guard and the National Transportation Safety Board concluded she separated upon hitting the lake floor. Marine historian Frederick Stonehouse moderated a panel reviewing the 1989 ROV survey and concluded extent of taconite coverage over the wreck. He concluded that the extension of the taconite coverage over the wreck site showed the stern floated on the surface for a short period of time, spilling taconite into the forward section. As such, wreck sections did not sink at the same time. And this is marine historian Frederick Stonehouse. The Shannon team found sections 255 feet apart, leading to the conclusion that the Fitzgerald broke at the surface. The stress fracture theory is supported by former crewmen's testimony.
retired Great Lakes Engineering Works naval architect Raymond Ramsey on Fitzgerald's hull design team reviewed the increased load lines and maintenance and longship hull history, concluding the ship was not seaworthy. Without modern computerized analytical technology, its longship design was developed without the benefit of research and development, tests, and evaluation principles. The hull was built with an all-welded instead of riveted modular fabrication method, first used at the Great Lakes Engineering Works shipyard. Ramsey concluded that the increase in hull length to 729 feet resulted in an L to D, that is, ship length to structure depth ratio that caused excessive actual hull bending and springing. The hull should have been structurally enforced to cope with the length increase.
The next theory involves topside damage. The U.S. Coast Guard agreed topside damage to failed rents and vents might have been caused by a heavy floating object such as a log. Mark Thompson instead believes the more plausible explanation that something broke loose from the deck.
He theorizes vents loss resulted in two ballast tanks or a ballast tank and a walking tunnel flooding caused the ship's list. He also believes the damage was more extensive than Captain McSorley could possibly detect in the pilot house, thus allowing cargo hold flooding. He concluded that topside damage reported by the Fitzgerald was compounded by heavy seas and was the most obvious explanation for the sinking. He hoped to ignore and contribute evidence of topside damage was, quote, analogous to that the Titanic was sunk by a German U-boat. Okay, and this is Mark Thomas, historian and mariner. And now we're going to get into possible contributing factors. The first is weather forecasting. The National Weather Service long-range forecast on day before loss predicted storm passing just south of Lake Superior and over the Keweenaw Peninsula, extending into the lake from the UP. Based on this forecast, the Anderson and the Fitzgerald started the trip following Lake Carrier Association route, placing them in storm's path. The National Transportation Safety Board investigation concluded that the National Weather Service failed to accurately predict wave heights on the day of loss. Hudquist of the National Weather Service ran computer models in 2005 using actual meteorological data on that day. He concluded it, that is the Edmund Fitzgerald, ended in precisely the wrong place at the worst possible time. The next possible contributing factor was inaccurate navigational charts. After reviewing testimony, the vessel had to pass near shoals north of Caribou Island. The U.S. Coast Guard Marine Board examined relevant navigational charts. Canadian 1973 navigational chart for the 6 Phantom Shoal area was based on surveys between 1916 and 1919, and the U.S. Lake Survey Chart number 9 from the same year included a notation, Canadian areas. For data concerning Canadian areas, Canadian authorities have been consulted. At the request of the board and commander of the U.S. Coast Guard's 9th District, the Canadian Hydrographic Service conducted a survey of the area surrounding Michigan and Caribou Islands in 1976. The survey revealed shoal ran 1 mile east of positions shown on charts. The National Transportation Safety Board investigation concluded that the Lake Survey Chart number 9
was not detailed enough to indicate a shoal as a navigational hazard. The next possible contributing factor was the lack of watertight bulkheads. Mark Thomas and Fred Stonehouse held if the Fitzgerald had watertight bulkheads, it would have made it to Whitefish Bay. After loss, the Great Lakes shipping companies were accused of valuing cargo holds over human life, since the vessel's 860,950 cubic feet cargo hold had been divided by two non-watertight transverse screen bulkheads. The U.S. Coast Guard had proposed watertight bulkheads since the launch of the Daniel J. Morrell in 1966, arguing it would allow ships to make it to refuge, at least an orderly abandonment of the ship. The Lake Carriers Association, however, forestalled such regulations by arguing about the economic hardship for vessel operators. Even today, most Great Lake vessels cannot prevent flooding of the entire cargo hold area. The next possible contributing factor was lack of instrumentation. Starters, a fathometer. The National Transportation Safety Board investigation concluded it would have provided the Fitzgerald navigational assistance instead of having to rely on it from the Anderson. Also, there was no system to monitor the presence or amount of water. Storm intensity would have made it difficult, if not impossible, to access spar deck hatches. The U.S. Coast Guard found hold flooding could not have been assessed until water reached the Taconites cargo top, and noted because of the Fitzgerald's lack of draft reading system, her crew could not determine whether there had been a loss of freeboard, level of ship's deck above the water. The National Transportation Safety Board concluded that it was impossible to pump water from the hold when it was filled with bulk cargo. Okay, these are spar deck hatches, and this is a diagram of a ship, superstructure and hull, and you'll see freeboard being boxed in. Shows you from the top of the ship all the way to the water line. The next possible contributing factor, increased load lines and reduced freeboard. U.S. Coast Guard increased the Fitzgerald load line 3 times to allow 3 feet and 3 1/4 inch less than the original design allowed. Thus, the vessel's deck was only 11.5 feet above the water when facing 35-foot waves at the time of loss. Concerns about her keel welding problem was raised when the U.S. Coast Guard began increasing her load line. This and the resulting freeboard reduction decreased her critical reserve buoyancy. Prior to this, she was said to be a good riding ship. Afterwards, she became sluggish with slower response and recovery times. Captain McSorley described her as a wiggly thing that scared him. Bow hooked from side to side in heavy seas without recovering and made groan sound not heard on other ships. Next was maintenance. The National Transportation Safety Board investigators noted prior groundings could cause undetected damage leading to major structural failure during the storm. Since Great Lake vessels, known as Lakers, were normally dry docked for inspection every 5 years. Allegations were made that McSorley did not keep up with routine maintenance nor confronted mates about getting requisite work done.
August B. Herbal Jr. examined weld photos and stated the hull was just being held together with patching plates.
Also, questions were raised concerning why the U.S. Coast Guard did not discover and take action
in its pre-November 1975 inspection, considering hatch combings, gaskets, and clamps were poorly maintained. The next possible contributing factor is complacency. Mick Sorley, known as a heavy weather captain who beat the out of the Fitzgerald and very seldom ever hauled up for weather. The National Transportation Safety Board investigation noted that Lakers could normally avoid severe storms. It called for establishment of limiting sea state applicable to Lakers, that is, restricting operations of vessels in sea states above limiting value. At the time of loss, there was no evidence that any government agency tried to control vessel movement in fall weather despite the Great Lakes' notorious record of storm losses. The U.S. Coast Guard took position that only the captain could decide on whether it was safe to sail. Mr. Thompson countered, the Coast Guard laid bare its own complacency. He blamed the sinking on industry-wide complacency since the U.S. Coast Guard inspected the vessel only 10 days before its loss. It exposed the U.S. Coast Guard's lack of rescue capability on Lake Superior. Said ongoing budget cuts limited their ability to perform its historic functions. And he noted that the rescue vessels were unlikely to reach an incident scene on Lake Superior or Huron 6 to 12 hours of occurrence. Last, we'll be discussing subsequent changes to Great Lakes shipping practices. In 1977, the U.S. Coast Guard institutes requirement that all vessels at or above 1,600 registered tons use depth finders. In 1980, they required survival suits in each member's quarters at their customary workstation with strobe lights affixed to life jackets and survival suits. Okay, now you're looking at a depth finder. This is a survival suit. And this is a diagram of a survival suit. Now you're seeing a strobe light. In the same year, there was implementation of low-sea positioning system for navigating the Great Lakes, which was later replaced with Global Positioning System, GPS, in the 1990s. Emergency position indicating radio beacons, EPIRBs, were installed on all Lakers for immediate and accurate location in event of disaster. This is Lawrence C and GPS. Navigational charts for Northeast Lake Superior were improved for accuracy and greater detail. NOAA revised the method for predicting wave heights. The U.S. Coast Guard rescinded the 1973 load-line regulation amendment permitting reduced freeboard loadings. The U.S. Coast Guard began annual pre-November inspection program recommended by the National Transportation Safety Board. The Coast Guard inspectors now board all U.S. ships during the fall to inspect hatch and vent closures and life-saving equipment.
Hello. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to giving you information on other disasters. My next show will be on the events of September 11th. This program will include a minute-by-minute account of this tragedy as well as an in-depth study of the chain of events leading up to it. Also, I've set up a Facebook page by the same name as this show. I am open to suggestions for future topics. Thank you for watching, and may you have a blessed day.